I'd like to call the planning board meeting to order. First on the agenda is to approve our minutes. from last meeting. Motion approved. Second by Tim. Second by Bob. Any discussion? All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
So on the agenda is to approve our meetings voucher. Motion by Sandy. Second by Tim. Any discussion? All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Next on our list is the Ramsey Development 100 White Eagle. Come up to the stand, please.
Good evening. Mark Malinowski here from Rock for the applicants. I also have Stephanie from Holiday Architecture and Justin from JBO Company. I'm not sure if you have our detailed plan package in your display there, but we also have the board for this evening. Yeah, I just was wondering whether you could upload it, so, but you all have copies of it. It's been a few months since the last time you were before the board. You made a recommendation regarding concept plan approval. Since that time, the town board has granted concept plan approval for the project. And the follow-up to that, the detailed plan approval, at the time, we didn't have enough information the last time before you to be able to address those things. Since that time, we've now provided that information as part of the formal detailed plan approval process, and then ultimately the final approval of the plan development. The project really has not changed significantly since we last saw you relative to the use. The uses are still residential primarily. We've changed the number of units now. We know it's 132 units, a mix of studios, one bedroom, two bedrooms. So we're a little bit more focused on unit breakdown in the facility. What has we sort of backed away from a little bit of some of the commercial uses. We anticipate there's going to be a restaurant. We know that we're going to continue to operate the facility that's there along with the pool. But the other complementary commercial uses we haven't fully identified. We don't expect they're going to be any different than what's allowed in the underlying B1 district. And so the approval that we received was that we would be able to do the residential uses that we're proposing, as well as those uses that are already allowed in the B1 district. That's the mixed use portion of what was approved. So those other uses we're still talking about. Restaurants, it's definite. What the end user is going to be, how large the customer is going to be, et cetera. That's still somewhat complex. When we know those things, we have to approach back to the building department. That was a condition of the approval. Up on the number of parking spaces that those different users might require, and make sure we don't see what available space we have. I will say we did analyze it in context of 280 seats for restaurants, which is way higher than anticipated, along with 750 spaces for 750 people that can handle in the banquet facility. We also don't expect that's going to be utilized in that fashion. And then we took the ITE traffic standards and applied that to it, and roughly is anticipated the 440 spaces that we have available to us on site. So we believe there's more than adequate parking, even assuming worst case scenario with existing uses. We ultimately expect that those uses will be less intensive, lower numbers as we go through that particular process. So the other piece that we didn't get into a great deal of detail with this board, but we did get some feedback that served as part of the process was to discuss the public amenities piece of the project. And what the town board requested there was the construction of a public walkway along the riverfront on our frontage, which is shown on the plan. I turn this over to Stephanie, she'll get into the details of it. But that was what the town board was looking for, the construction of that walkway along the front of the property. Also a kayak launch location a little bit safer for the turn of the river. and then some other associated entities, again, second will get into that. And so, we've been working through a dedication agreement with the town to dedicate that over to the town in the form of a public easement. So we will construct it and then, turn over an easement for public access. Additionally, there will be 17 spaces reserved specifically for use by the public, for those that will be using the public there as well. So those were all the things that came out of both the recommendations of this board as well as the discussions that we had. So that's the prelude, that's where we are today. I'm going to turn it over to Stephanie to get into a little bit more detail about both the public amenities and also the building. We didn't have many details on how the building is going to evolve with issues with the construction stuff.
I think Mark has hit on a lot of the elements of the site plan that are on here, but I don't know if you get too much how we saw that. But just to highlight, this is where you got the path that you mentioned, is an 8-foot wide asphalt path that runs approximately 1,500 feet, so about a quarter mile that will stretch along the waterfront. We are doing a few minor updates to associated waterfront, as Mark mentioned, we'll be adding some benches and just some amenity spaces in the clear space that's right adjacent to the waterfront.
Will the maintenance of that path be your responsibility?
No, actually, that's not, I'm sorry. So we will build and construct the path. The town will sort of take over the long-term responsibility for maintaining the path. We maintain all the property around it, because it's still ours, but, for instance, if it had to be paved or something like that, so when they get that.
And a little bit further to the north here, you see the kayak launch. So this was located between the historic ferry landing and where the existing dock is. We thought that that was probably the safest place for the stretch of the land, just to make sure that it's a bit of a rest of the track. So this was kind of look at all the areas we have. This was the most the safest. As we go,
Is that something that's taken in and moved every year?
yeah, we haven't gotten into the exact details of it, but
Because otherwise ice is an issue there.
Right.
The town, that's why the town, town will own.
the town.
The town will have, they own the path, obviously, they have to do it. Yeah, the town will have a permanent easement over the path. So they didn't want to own the land, for whatever reason, we discussed conveying it to them. They didn't want to own it, they didn't want to easement over it. I think part, they didn't want to deal with mowing the lawn and everything else around it, which will be our responsibility, because we're sort of operating everything around it. And then the kayak launch itself, that's, whether it's a license and easement, we haven't worked out the detail of that, because no one owns the river, so they're not kind of property right necessarily associated with that. But that part of the public easement, so.
But the installation and removal will be your responsibility.
So the floating dock itself, you all are going to provide?
Yeah.
Or is that your
Yeah.
cost?
Yeah, at our cost, because the construction pavement of the walkway, the benches, and the kayak launch are all,
So is that going to be a similar launch to what currently exists down at, Ferry Village on the state property? Are you familiar with that? And there's also a similar launch in Beaver Island, where you have a floating kind of dock where you can play it.
yeah, I'm familiar with the Beaver Island one, I'm not familiar with the other one. I'm not sure that we use it yet, we haven't gotten to that level of detail. We have to look at the plan,
Yeah.
how can we bounce it, those type of things, and then we can decide on something. That's how we've done. The town has review over that process, also whatever that final design looks like, they're going to be part of it.
But you did mention that the path is going to be maintained by the town. I'm not sure.
That's correct. So, for instance, if the path needs to be repaved 15, 20 years from now, it's going to be the town's responsibility to pay it. But the rest of the maintenance, that will still be part of it. We don't know if that's going to be year round, path yet, and snow removal, and that's something we still got to work through with the capital. Lane or whatever.
While we're on this question,
Right, can we get into that point a little closer?
yeah, while we're on this, the drawing. One is going to long-term and short-term rental, and then it says monthly rental and cost. Are you gonna run it, you're running this as a hotel and a rental unit? They're not, because originally I thought it was about only the rental units.
We expect a transition. No, not at all. So we expect there to be a transition between when it gets fully converted over to residential units and then it turns into that. We didn't want to shut down the hotels and keeping them entirely while we go through that process. So it's just an evolution of the final.
I see, because one of the running, it's rental unit 6 stories, is that gonna be?
Well, the building's controlled.
Okay, rental units, it will be the same thing that would be knocked off part, and that part of the,
Yeah,
that part of the
the
hotel.
hotel will basically stay as it is for some time, we get through the process and then start probably converting floor by floor, whatever evolution they have into the one, until there's no longer a hotel.
So the timing of all that would take how long approximately to go from what it is to, 133 apartments?
We're expecting somewhere around 18 to 24 months on the outside from today, where we get it today.
Just for clarity, and because I was talking with the town attorney today on the topic, and their request did not extinguish the underlying zone. You did it as an overlay request, so it's still in a B zone district, which actually would allow, there was a question that came up, okay, short-term rental, that is the thing that you brought up. Even in full build-out completion, they could utilize spaces within it because the underlying zoning was not extinguished in this project. So just point of clarity, because there was a question, hey, can they use short term? So you guys know town code and stands with short term. That business, because of the business district, still having that zoning there allows.
Well, short term is bigger than 30 days.
They could do week, they could do short term.
Short term is under
Right.
30 days.
Right.
Excuse me, 100.
Yeah. So that, because of not extinguishing the underlying zoning, that use is allowed in that district. It's basically like hotel.
Well, when you say not extinguishing the underlying zoning, my impression is that this is transferring from the underlying zoning to a PDD. You're saying it's an overlay?
The way that they made the application is overlay.
Yeah,
Dan actually explained that to me today on the phone, so I did, like I said, I'm just bringing up what he, explained to me when it came up as a question. Since Frank brought up the short-term concept, I just wanted to make sure, that was the way we got.
and that allows the mixed use component of the facility, so we still need the commercial element to be one allowed. So that's why we wanted to continue the B1 zoning to the uses and the residential component now allowed.
But with a PDD, if you extinguished all the underlying zonings, you could still allow, could you not? A restaurant or commercial enterprises?
Yeah,
It's not,
we didn't feel the need given the B1 district already allowed. Basically, the breadth of the potential commercial use to be potentially engaging to the site. And this is an evolution of the project site. What we do with the commercial spaces, mainly the former banquet facilities, things of that nature, is something that we have to work our way through and decide this final end to do. But there will be within the confines of this, allowed to do.
so I have another question, the blacktop path, the 8-foot wide path, doesn't show connectivity, from what I can see, any other area. In other words, to get to that path, how do you get there on the foot without crossing grass?
You can see, this is where we designated the 17 parking.
Right.
There is blacktop that connects there.
Okay,
So the intent is to come, and if you're using it as a resident, you can come through and connect with out there. Or there is connection connection back as part of, this is also the light here, it's pavement, so you can connect back over on this end as well. So you can kind of do it.
So anybody, if anybody other than a resident can park their car in other than the 17 designated spots, walk down there and use the path. Yeah, okay.
And the path.
Right, yeah,
And the lawn itself is, as we move this kind of more public space.
Right.
What's your vision for the old fairyland? It's pretty rough.
So, I mean, we looked at it and it's not really feasible, I don't think it's like rebuild in a way, but we're thinking of doing for signage or an element to just have a view of what it was, so that when people come down here, that is kind of the culmination of the path. So it would be nice to have some sort of work now to that.
And reached out to those wonderful society.
Yeah, it's even told that there might be some grant money available to help restore or do something. Kind of take those down, that's how we're going to approach it.
Currently, there's a lot of reroute, big reroutes sticking out all over the place. It seems to be very unsafe. The other question is in front of the ferry landing. Now, I noticed in your drawing, it shows green as you come down to that last point. Go down towards the park. Okay, a little bit down towards you. That last house there. That's Jim Sneed's home. There's a big stone area across the road. Is that your property? Are you leaving that stone?
We were intending not to be built in.
So
So that,
you're-
right now, I think it's used as more of a forum, so our intent is because we've heard on multiple reasons, the corner, it's not safe for pulling off, so we would be making that.
So you're gonna remove the stone and topsoil and grass, correct?
When the build out is complete, will the B1 no longer exist?
Oh, the B1 will remain.
The whole idea of the building, but with the way that they've done that, with
right.
And just the way that we did the application of the advice, not like we're trying to see something, like this is really what we've been advised to make the application is need to be one, on top of it.
I just think that last meeting, I was more on the understanding by your presentation to us that you were going from B1 to PDD.
Well,
There wasn't a mix.
yeah, well,
That's how I understood it last meeting.
and the conversation we had with the town attorney was the more efficient way to handle it is if you want to remain with the PDD only for the resident.
Is that where we get the question number that commission acreage giveaway?
Yeah,
As part of the PDD, we were saying, well, what are you doing with it?
yeah,
That got niched out, right?
Yeah.
But that's why I think, I'm sure some of us on the board of office. B1 to straight PDD.
Yeah, that was my impression.
Well, so hanging on to a B1 means they'll always be able to do single night rental.
And whatever B1 is in the code. So we don't, like, you know, a PDD, they have to tell us every aspect of, the PDD becomes the blueprints. So if you don't tell us every aspect of what you're doing, there's all these open-ended things that could be done. Well, and that's gonna dovetail into another discussion. Tonight, with the application that's in front of you, and if you read into our code and what your procedures can be, you could segment your approval. You could grant details addressing the residential component because it's fixed, it's established, your numbers are there, the build out, the parking, everything's established there. You could basically make a recommendation split, that being codified. And then either saying when each time you come in with something, then in the other end, okay, we got a restaurant. What kind of restaurant? What's the seats? What's the size? You're back here.
Yeah.
What does it show for everyone? What does it do? That's a possible, you know, each little sub piece would then, because you would say, hey, you don't have, you just gotta do, or it was said, just go with building. No, you guys could basically split this. Tonight say, yeah, we're, you know, if you're good on the residential, just assuming you're good on the residential, codify that and then say, not on the other piece, and only those happen as you have something going to that site. You know, I don't know if you could say, yeah, condition, you know, to town board that they would be coming back, the other pieces would just, you know, withhold getting, you know, granting that piece. And talking again with Dan today, that is a totally appropriate way to address this, because it is a void. Right now, we don't know. On top of that, you saw in my memo, his discussion, they didn't use town standards for parking. Once again, so what does it become when we don't know what it's going to be? So, you know, there can be a reservation of granting approval on that piece with all those wildlands.
Yeah, and we envisioned that, that was actually part of the discussion of the concept plan approval, was that idea. As we moved through this process, the commercial uses became less clear on enough retail to come in and say, I'm gonna have a 100-seat restaurant, and this is what it's gonna be. We're not there yet, so.
So Mark, that doesn't hurt you guys with
No,
where
no,
you
that's-
are in process, the deadline you have. Okay.
Yeah.
And there was a concern of what that did. Or
My other question, and I brought this up last time. A huge drainage or the huge federal wetland that goes behind all of residents on East River and borders, so Mr. Burbank's property and I think Indiana comes through your property to the DI with a 12-inch corrugated, which is where you're big enough and all the water coming that way. And constantly gets plugged. I'm under the understanding that Mr. Burbank just recently cleaned that part out himself. But still that goes through your land.
Yeah, I believe there's an easement on the property for that.
that's actually the county's drainage, that's through your property. Yeah. When we've dealt with it as the town, including when Frank did some pieces with it back in the day, is that through and then the road frontage lots and that kind of stuff happened. Yeah, that piece is actually, the road is county, into his parking lot is county, and out of the river is county.
Right. And when I tried to get it clean 15 years ago, I had to go like that with the county, they really didn't want to be bothered. Okay, just so that, I just want to make sure I brought that.
It's still there now.
Okay, another question that I have is, I understand that the path goes past the existing residence, those 4 homes there. I understand you straightened out the one cloud title with Frank and Tom. But as you come down the road, I believe those folks have had interest in buying the land. Is that been
It's something that's been discussed before, but frankly, we just tabled it until we got through the approval and we knew what we have. I mean, some of that land is now easy, but we would have agreed to sell it to them a couple months ago, and now we have an unwinding agreement because we're doing an easement for them. So we said, those variables, let's table that, we can resurrect those discussions once it's all approved.
So in terms of resurrecting that, it doesn't look like you could resurrect that because.
Yeah.
Maybe it's been built on that. Yeah.
The town board wanted the
Right.
to go from the old ferry lane and all the way across the property. And that's
So there's zero opportunity to convey any of those frontages to anybody near the
they're
property.
very, very long. With the waiting.
Right.
We said, we want to know what we have, we can improve it. We know how to engage it.
Well, if the town's going to control, if the town's going to control, you know, the usage and the maintenance of the easement, then I think the town's going to be able to control who could convey any kind of frontage to any of those, you know, 3 or 4 owners. Because that would be their own.
Yeah, they haven't instructed us, they haven't instructed us to do anything with that piece of it. Again,
So those are neighbors, just to kind of nail you down. As the neighbors keep calling me. You're really not going that route at this time at all.
at this time, we've got to work through this, so right now we can't commit to that. I wouldn't say
If the town is,
completely off the table, but
if the town is requiring what you have wrong,
yeah.
then that becomes an easement
to the town, but then to reverse that, and try to sell that thing to the people across the street.
Yeah.
I mean, you're an attorney, nightmare.
Well,
In all the considerations in the zoning and the PDD and the incentive zoning of not meeting the acreage and pieces of that was working with the town about enhancing public access.
Right,
So it seems the town has said they're not liking the idea of the developers splitting that off and selling it over to the residents. But in order to make this project for the town's concessions on zoning and the town's concessions on the pieces is to be able to enhance the public by maintaining that piece under the property and under the development. And I well understand. The only thing reason I'm asking is they keep asking. So if it's off the table, it's off the table.
Again,
Going to him is only half the story. You would have to go to the town board. They would have to go to the town board and ask the town, right now, the town's directing them to enhance public access. Right. So what, how does that have opinions?
well, here's,
Call me tomorrow.
Just record wise,
well, here's the thing. If, these folks as a private owner conveyed that to, those 3 or 4 owners at some point in the future, the easement that's been granted, the town has an easement that runs with the land. So, those 3 or 4 could have title to that, but it doesn't mean anything because the town has the right to use that for public purposes.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, those are great.
it'll never happen.
And I think owning that water pump with that full easement on it is a legal nightmare for a resident.
yeah, and, I think part of their concerns were that somebody was gonna build something over there. And this effectively removes that possibility.
This sucks control. Okay.
So,
the entrance to your recreational center. It's over there on the side below the restaurant. And it only has 12 parking spaces available, none of them are ADA. If you're having a recreational center in the current conference area, 12 spaces hardly seems enough.
no, it's not in common area. It's in the existing location. Yeah, so that's again why working through these details, so we know where that is gonna end up in final and where that parking is and everything else is gonna be subject to further review going forward.
So
But it's still nonetheless 12 for the recreational center hardly seems to be enough.
Still need to be a decent parking spot, but if not, these older ones will still be available. I mean, there are a few previous options. Even though we've got the designated number of agents, so those can really select them. Where exactly? So we can certainly move 1 or 2 of those previous spots to that column as well.
Okay, the other ones would just be a further walk.
So right now, I've never been to the 50 center, so excuse me, so that's how you get to the 50 center currently?
No, we go to the front door. We're trying to make access easier, but adding more parking is currently isn't there.
So then I
That
have
parking,
to,
those aren't solvable.
I have to agree with Norm, I mean, my wife's in a wheelchair. It's difficult, like if the spots are like front of the door, it's very difficult, especially when the weather turns. Just, for somebody on the chair. I agree with you on that.
So yeah, I would think at least designate, a couple of those ADA.
Yeah, because you might have,
We can do that.
you might have more people going there, not for physical therapy, but some further therapy, which is what my wife actually does too. One place for physical therapy, gym, on the optics. Okay.
Dave, maybe you covered this. Can you hear me?
Yeah, go ahead, Nate.
Those 17 spaces, are any of them handicap accessible? And it seemed like we should probably have a couple of them that are ADA accessible. And will the trail be ADA accessible?
Good point, Dave. So you talking about the ones over in this area of public use,
Yes.
and we can also designate move some of the ADA that are permitted here, just spread them out a little bit better. So we can certainly do that, and then we will work with the existing grades to make that an accessible option for the existing people.
Rather than moving the next one, you add more.
And you can just, 15 spaces and 2 designated handicap spaces.
Yeah, you can make conditions for the fitness center and then this area has 2 areas, spaces, and each use that way. It's really good.
Can you give me a breakdown on the square footage of the units?
So a studio is 315, a 1 bedroom is double that, so it's 30. And then the 2 bedroom is 945. It's essentially my room.
Part of your display here, you're showing a boat back down on front of that dock. When is the plans to repair that? And actually make it,
That'll be part of probably a long time when the building gets put back into service.
so is that's part of the public access that they're granting to the town?
The docks themselves are not, that's just to the dock. Yeah, so people can walk up to the docks. That's fine, but the docks themselves might be public docks. Not yet, that's not really offered to the dock. We like that.
I'm just looking at the fiasco at the marina next door and the condition of the docks and what the town put into that is literally falling in the river. So I just wanted to know when the timeline to fix that is. You're gonna public access to it, you're gonna want people wanting to walk out on it. And it's dangerous.
Yeah,
It's probably the most dangerous thing on the water there is. So I'm just wondering when that timeline is gonna be.
yeah, that's, again, that'll be online with the law,
I noticed in your parking that you say 440 now parking spaces, so according to the calculations, the town will come up with 535. In the 440, is that 17 in the 440 or outside of the 440?
It's outside, so we didn't count, we treated the 17 as separated outside,
So it's really 457.
correct.
Okay.
And that's not including any of the area that you're selling on.
Correct.
As you feel the 440 is adequate?
Absolutely. Yeah, respect to the town's parking ratios were pretty high. And we found that I was standard pretty, a little bit more accurate, but that's what I used.
But those town estimates that we use, we require everybody else to follow or anything, parking and locations for that.
So that's part of our PZ request, is that we, it's a standard, so the way we're part of it.
Since the town's, biggest concern that I hear from about this project is, oh no, what if the hotel closed? So that seems to be a big concern in this town is how everybody runs their business. God forbid if something closes. So I'm just curious on what your rent rates are for these units.
They're gonna be market rate, I don't know if we decided on the final number.
I'm just wondering, what do you consider market rate for a 300 square foot?
I think our current projections are around $1,100.
And your what bedrooms?
I didn't come with those numbers, there, but it'd be around 1,500.
Okay, and then your 2 bedroom,
Another probably $200 off.
so 18 to 19 around there.
Those are approximate, I mean, I'm on the record, but that. I mean, it'll be market rate when it comes online, and we start, so that could be quite a bit different a year from now, if rent is dropping, if rent is rising.
Dave DeSure, any comment on parking?
No, other than the ADA issue I talked about.
Okay, thanks, Dave. Anyone else have any other questions?
I'm not.
Oh, I'm sorry.
So in your request for the PDD, you want to circumvent our 25 acre requirement. You want to circumvent our your incentivized zoning, you want to give us like a path in front of the water. Starts nowhere, goes nowhere, and then we get to maintain it from perpetuity.
Yeah, that's perfect.
That's one heck of an incentive. I don't know who's giving any incentive, but that's not an incentive for the town. That's a great incentive for you. You got a nice path in front of your property for your apartment building, and then we have to maintain it. Wow, that's brilliant. That's a brilliant.
You want? Well,
No. Anyone else say anything else?
For some reason, I couldn't read exhibit B. I don't know if am I missing anything on B? That looks to be like, look at that. That's the, well, okay. And then building colors, are you planning on painting or?
So in the rendering of the document, we are leaving the same, really the only marginal, modifications to the structure itself, is related to the canopy on the back side, on the roof, of the metal. Right now, we're removing that, you can see on the back side, on this one, so that, these will be gone, we're going to remove the windows on this, so this will be an open air, for the restaurant, so that you can kind of see that you can sit on the cover, and that will just be open air, using it back to your wall. We would be painting it a charcoal and white, to touch it up a little bit, lighting, and
just add on, this restaurant area is an addition. When you look back at the plans over the last 50 years, this was added on to. So the building is actually already built with an exterior wall that's currently enclosed. So by removing the windows and creating a covered dining area, it actually works really well because it's already an exterior wall built, how it was originally.
I know last time you were gonna take the corrugated roof off the seating area out there, so now you're just gonna utilize.
Well,
What
we
you have.
learned more and we learned that it's actually constructed in a way to allow
what-
a really big covered shaded.
So what happens to the corrugated roof that's gone?
yeah,
And you won't need to put anything back there?
so that would just be the same, and it would just be open. Kind of,
Okay.
so that would just be further. And then where you see the wood color elements, that would be an olive panel, which is add a little bit of funk to the facade. We've got that along the river side, as well as on the front of the line of port share as well. And then on this first floor, we're introducing a few additional units, so they'll be new punch openings, they have side glass doors, so those from that first floor. And then all the additional ones.
What are those, the commercial spaces?
Yeah. It's back of house, so we're maintaining some of it on the inside of the space, not the cold one, but we're taking advantage of just the outside wall of this first floor. So we're keep it small. I know they're slightly larger, so we're looking for one.
Well, I did want to add something. The kayak launch. Of our existing, we got 4 kayak launches on Grand Island. I've never once seen a line. Although, went to launch my kayak, and there was nowhere to go. And this section of the river is very busy. And it's very, the current is very steep, so it's not very likely that kayak launch is ever going to be used. Can't imagine somebody coming all the way there to launch a kayak.
Yeah, we've looked into that and actually we talked to the gentleman that was on the town committee, regarding this. Question, we come up with a particular location and where is the river? We can do it in a spot that's out of the head of the front. Part of the problem with the former ferry launches, that's in the worst. So putting it over there, then moving it further up river or down river, moving it further down river, got it a little bit further out of the stronger current, so we can.
Brad, I was gonna say, Brad, I'd comment quick. I mean, there was a large habitat restoration project that was accomplished by DEC that goes along along that whole bicentennial park. So basically the mouth of the marina, downriver for a substantial depth area where you're saying, can't imagine somebody using, those are explore places, that's wildlife areas. You've got the whole wetland and bicentennial park area shoreline, all of those improvements that have been done, the habitat restoration. And I see quite the contrary of people actually exploring those areas. It's just, as you threw that out there, it's like, wait a minute, there is a bunch of stuff that's been done in those areas that enhances that, that type of recreational use.
Well, I can say this, having been a kayaker for about the last 6+ decades, there are kayakers and there are kayakers. And there are people who like quiet water and people who like to get little 8-foot boats that run rapids and big wakes and stuff like that. So they're all kind of kayakers. They're all kind of canoers too. So I understand Bob's point that a lot has been done from the other side of the green all the way to Grass Island. There's a lot of stuff that has been done. But since I live right there, I've never seen anyone launch a kayak at that area.
Yeah, it's not a good look.
They know it's not, they're not seen anyone try. Okay, anybody else have any other questions?
I've been asked to bring up one piece, so town code, going back to our zoning code, and do a commercial development in the sewer area. This project does not, and we're talking about, we don't know who's taking care of the path in the winter, we don't know what's being used, so we broached the topic of sidewalks. Going back into our code, commercial property in a sewer district, as that opens the door for you, and they were not originally installed, obviously, back in the day. The town is maybe in a different position at this stage of time, so once again, that's something for this board to evaluate. You guys should consider that one, dialogue on that one. And the other piece, I'm gonna throw you 2 things to think about, there's that one. And then the second one is also, you're now going to true residential. People living here, resources, so recreation fees become an eligible discussion with this board on this project. So I just, those 2 things for you guys today to consider also. Well, I'll just say the residential component, I think is a no-brainer, and at $500 per living unit or per door, whatever you want to call it. So you're talking $65,000 in recreational fees, which I particularly recommend. As far as the sidewalk, and Stephanie, I think you mentioned 1,500 feet of asphalt paths, so 1,500 feet of, I'm just guessing, 1,500 feet of concrete sidewalk from one end of the property. Oh, no, that's the path. I'm talking about sidewalks along the road. Oh, down East River. Down along East River. We're talking 1,500 feet, and, $4 or $5. Oh, maybe 4 feet, 4 or 5 feet wide, and it's probably close to $8 or $9. Yeah, $8 or $9. So you're talking, and I don't know, there's a bit of redundancy because you have the asphalt path, which one could say, well, that counts as a sidewalk. And then forget, I don't know you, but the River Oaks, they wait the sidewalks in front of those 6 homes past your entrance to your subdivision. No, did not waive the sidewalks. That was part of this planning board's recommendation to the town board back when those 6 or 7, actually I think it's 7 houses were, or the lots were subdivided. So there's about 1,000 feet sidewalk that the builder never followed up on in terms of, installing them. But at the same token, the final CFO was granted to those properties without the sidewalk being each of those, which was wrong. There's more still going on in that. It's still an ongoing thing, Pete, or is that been settled? I'm not aware of it. Not even if it's ongoing. We're still working on it. Okay. So are you saying it's in
some
So
form of
it's not been
litigation.
waived.
No, it hasn't been waived, it's been sidebars for now, and
Okay.
kind of looking at some other stuff there,
Was it a matter of litigation with the town?
not yet.
Well, if it's not a matter of litigation with the town, why can't?
Well, we're still working through a bunch of stuff at the top, there's a lot of questions and a lot of. The road, the right of way doesn't really support, put the sidewalk in there, we talked about different ideas, you know, as far as extended shoulder there and other things.
I mean, I just brought it up.
We're just not there. And it's,
I wouldn't marry any decision based on anything that's going on there.
and if I was to give you my opinion, it would just be my opinion,
Well,
you know.
I'm not saying we should marry the two, you know, this is an independent.
So we're back to the walkway.
Let's call that.
I'm all in favor of the walkway. I mean, I think an 8-foot walkway is gonna be a very nice feature walking along there. But to have the town maintain that walkway, to me, is not correct. Also, snow removal on that. I mean, if somebody wants to go out in the winter and walk along there and they slip, whose ass is it? Is it the town's or yours? I mean, the town. See? Because they didn't maintain it. That's why.
The town was.
If they put this walkway in, they should maintain it.
Everything insurance. It's fine, this is quite a the incentive. This is great.
Can I just run through some of the points and see if you guys, if I'm kind of down them all? We're kind of thinking about a segment of approval. The apartments, and then when they go further with T1, you get to come back to the planning board. More ADA parking at the fitness location.
And the recreational,
ADA parking, I'm sorry.
at the recreational.
Yes, that was my next to the rec location. And we were saying that we're good with the 440s.
Yeah.
Rec fees, we were.
Well, it's like, hang on, because you're, okay, so you're good with the 440, you know, they're not using town codes. Decided that they're using IPT. And I don't, Dave, can you hear me on this?
Yes,
So can you, I mean, I know your experience is in this realm, so we've got, they're citing ITT for parking and we have town code. And they differ a fair amount.
yes, right.
So it would be a recommendation from this board to reduce the parking from the 500, whatever it was, 535 to the 440. It's kind of where I'm thinking.
And every time we come in here, we're gonna be with the reduced parking is part of it. That was sort of a concept and approval document. And understanding that was necessary by the guy.
Another thing I've got on my list here is sidewalks and gravel, maintenance and snow removal of that. The hotel owner is responsible.
So I would actually look at it as, what are they getting for the half along the line? They're gonna give them a PBD, they're gonna give them a use of short-term rental, we're gonna give them a waiver on sidewalks, we're gonna give them a waiver on the amount of parking, and we're gonna maintain part of their property. I don't know who's getting this incentive, but it's not.
I think this is, one thing on the sidewalk, they would consider that. We heard from the board neighbors that it's not the safest corner, and that essentially, from that perspective alone, of course, I don't want to be done with the walkway. A lot of money to build another sidewalk, it doesn't make sense to pull pedestrian traffic away from the road, especially that corner to the river, more beautiful anyway. And I think that was something that the government sidewalk.
Well,
It's
then,
part of our code, so it's required.
So,
I understand that. It's a good point, but if I'm gonna walk down East River, which I do,
And I'm gonna jump on the sidewalks once I hit your properties at some point up here. As I'm assuming you'd be going all the way to the end of your property, and then down East River. If I use the path, which would be great, how do I get there? You have to put an entrance from. Something just pointed, you have to put an entrance there. And then at the end of it, how do I get from there to East River?
We can make sure that the signage and it's all parts of it. You can have.
But by the time you do all that,
We also,
there's not going to be any real savings.
You know, it's also not maintained. It's also not maintained. Winter clearing, winter doing, so the walkers, the people that still exercise, it's a conundrum that's really got it. You know, sidewalk, they would be responsible for sidewalk across front into their facilities regardless of what.
So as we're ready to close on this, and we have another one coming up in front of us, are we gonna waive sidewalk? Well, is that gonna be the new standard? I mean, we have lots of new standards being passed in this board, so I'm just wondering if that's the difference. Well, I brought up those points. No, I know. I'm just wondering if we're gonna give them an approval on this PDD, are we gonna waive all these things, and then that can be our standard? I think the approval is on the site, not on the PDD, because the PDD, in terms of a change in the code, is still subject to public hearing, correct? I mean, it hasn't become a PDD yet.
It's already received concept plan approval, so this is the approval that's necessary to finalize the actual plan. Pursuant to. Town hasn't passed it yet. Right. So we're still at a theoretical stage as far as. We would be passing. That's right. I don't think that's accurate. So the concept plan approval means that the use concept on the PDD is approved by the board. Detailed plan approval is for the actual construction of what's being built. This use, the residential use, is now permitted. The question is, the physical aspects of the PDD are what the detailed plan approval process is. So it's a two-step process. Typically, this board is handled as jointly, so people make detailed plan applications and then going through that. Because of the timeline that we were under, we were still looking through our detailed plan to ensure it's a two-step process with the concept plan approval first, and then separately the detailed plan. So it's, the use has been permitted by the town board. That's been taken care of. The purpose of tonight is, and the next step of the town board is a question of whether the actual site plan is consistent with the PUD and approvable.
And that's where we can say we can segment, because the one is still undefined. And the one is quite defined. They have the buildings, they have, they have the residential occupant component clarified, quantified. They've got parking that supports it. They've got that piece of the puzzle solved. So you can look at that and say that is in conformance with the concept development plan and grant them that approval on that piece, but the other areas still, we don't know. We don't know the densities of the development. We don't know what we're getting because we don't have the restaurants. We don't have the commercial entities. We don't have all of that finalized.
We also don't have a 10-acre PDD on books. It's still in the works.
The town board is expecting a commentary, and the attorney said this is the appropriate time for you to be able to make this finding on this.
Without an
Yeah.
existing law.
Yeah.
Okay, does anybody have anything to add to my laundry list?
So just your rec fees is the only piece, and I know somebody said yes, but you didn't.
No, we didn't, I just threw out the laundry list. I didn't agree to anything.
Right. Well, the rec fees is on your line,
It's on my list.
and clarity that there's 750 apartments.
Oh, okay. So it's about 100.
Anyone else have anything to add to the laundry list? Frank, I just let your hand along.
I kind of, we didn't really say what we were gonna do with the site. If I lived on Whitehaven, let's say we developed a little bit over there. And I wanted to walk down the Whitehaven, walk all the way down along East River, all the way in the end, and then walk back home. It'd be nice to have a sidewalk. The ran along. Do you have room for a sidewalk? Or would you have to get rid of parking?
Yeah, those streets, because the width of the right of way is pretty wide over there, so where the current pavement is, you're up against the edge of the right of way. So there's not.
There may not be put a sidewalk in. Mostly.
Okay, so we're waiting for that part of the landscaping here.
The other question I have, you said that for about a couple of years or whatever, you've been using this as a hotel until you got plenty of stuff ready. That seems kind of open-ended. You want to put a time limit on it, because it's not, you know, you can do it for a couple of years, and then after that. But make
No, I don't think we're inclined to
should
be
we have a timeline? I'm not sure. I don't have any problem with hotel. Maybe some other people. Well, Frank, I think as a practical matter, the hotel has been failing for years. You know, in terms of fiscal, whatever. So it's gonna take these guys, a year and a half, 2 years to convert this thing, and, you know. No, well, I was thinking that beyond the 2 years, whatever could. Well, I think it's. And the other thing is that they make, some of the other places apartments. You know, they're gonna have a lot fewer units, maybe they'll run a hotel from, 50 instead of 20, 200. Okay, maybe 260. I don't know, maybe 50 would work.
Well, and
I mean, just because you can't do 260, maybe you could do 50.
that's certainly not the way. I want to say that it's a plan.
And I'm not sure that's a bad thing.
Yeah, we don't envision that.
No, I know, you guys.
I mean, you might not be able to answer this question, but I'm gonna ask. There's all been this talk that the hotel doesn't make any money. And that's why it's changed ownership over the past 20 years or so. So you guys being the developers here. And I know you're an attorney for stuff. Why do you want to operate the hotel facilities?
Well, it's a temporary revenue stream to help offset.
But it doesn't make any money, it's not a temporary money.
Well, if they shrink down the operations, shrink down staff, that can help with that process. And some of the folks that are there may end up being part of the employees that ultimately service the facility like it's converted. We're still gonna have electric, so we're still gonna need servers and trucks and things like that. So there's some learning for our future uses that benefits from the buildings don't like to be empty and shut down. Mechanical systems, plumbing systems, they like to use, and they're not used, they're shut down and shut off. You don't want to leave buildings cold, basically. So if you shut the building down, if you're not using it for anything, that's when buildings tend to deteriorate. So we'd rather, kind of keep it alive while we're doing that.
For 35 years, so you wouldn't be shutting the building down, you would be shutting the hotel down, and building the apartment aspect. The building won't close. You would still have heat going, electrical, and water moving.
Some staff, for instance, for the pool, the gym, so it's, again, using what we have for our advantage in the interim is a good converted, it's better for everyone.
Well, my question is, I understand that. Question is, you want to put a time on interest. Now, if there's interest, sales of food, then we want more converted.
Our position is we prefer not to have limitation.
I'm just bringing that up as an option, because it might go for a long time. I'm not sure that's bad, but.
Well, certainly, it doesn't make money.
No, I
We have to be
don't.
around it. The hesitation that we're expressing we built 125, residential units, 10 as a, the chief hotel piece of it, makes for a nice mix. So we don't want to restrict ourselves from that business. But it doesn't, as a 262 in the fall.
How many studio units do you envision?
Actually, what is that, number 9?
So close to nine, those. Stephanie, the ADA parking you talked about, the centers, are any there now? So what were you thinking of, 2 or 4?
Two dedicated manner, two dedicated, public, parking,
I think that actually, on Westfall, did you say we cannot segment this now? No, we can't.
No, you absolutely can. Because you have a defined, portion of it is very defined, it would be, you know, the code allows you to say, hey, this is cut, this is dry, this is no, we're good with this.
Okay, I thought I misunderstood, okay. Anyone else have any other questions?
Just one point of interest. In the recreational area there, you have 17 spots. Many times people pull in with their kayak on their roof, but many times they pull in with the trailer behind it, which is gonna take up spots. So the idea of adding more spots would be advantageous. And spots to be able to pull through with the trailer.
Trailer for a kayak?
I think people would, but
Yeah, sometimes I have a canoe, and I have a little trailer. Strap it to the canoe, and the front part, catch it.
we can look and see what happens. Ultimately, we think there's an access to parking here. If someone ends up parking in the field, that it has
I mean, I don't think if I come here with my trailer and I have one park outside and stuff,
They're all
those spots, you're gonna have to be told. I don't understand. I don't think that that's gonna be the case.
we don't expect that.
Anyone else have any other questions? Okay, there you go. I'm gonna make a motion. I'm gonna make a motion to segment the approval of the concept plan. A, apartments, and B, the B1 areas that you will need to come back to the planning board whenever you move forward with any of those issues. Hang on, please. Secondly, 2 ADA spots at the fitness center location at the entrance. 2 ADA spots in the 17 spots that you're given to the designated area for the public. You can maybe edit the change. I'm just. We're already short of, we're gonna make, you know, in this is gonna be a motion from, or I'm sorry, for this board to recommend to the town board that the 535 required spaces be reduced to the 440. That you are to put in sidewalks on East River. You are to pay $750 per apartment on the rent fees. And I stopped, I think.
Well, there's it's 500 on standard residential ones.
Let's just call it whatever the
For the
applicable
fire,
number is.
for appropriate fee for the code.
Appropriate fee for the rent fees. And last, that you maintain the path on the river year round. That's the motion.
If I might just add one, question, is asking me to clarify that we need to continue to operate the existing fitness facility that people are using now within this approval. Not agreeing on what I'm saying.
I think that would just be standard, because the whole, you're gonna see the whole telephone as it is.
Okay, so you envision it sort of part of the existing.
I'm sorry.
So you envision it part of the existing. In that. So we're not gonna come back to the board to get the existing fitness center.
No, that as much as you moved it.
Well, if we put a new one in, that's a big.
you will move the entrance at some point. To the fitness.
Yeah, we may move the whole thing, so
Because there was some talk, you were gonna.
potentially moving it up, because right now it's down to base.
So what if it's existing, it's status quo, right? What I'm assuming my motion is covering.
So can I ask one question? You answered one. Early on,
you mentioned segmentation for apartments. Are you, by stating that, are you saying no transient use beyond the conversion period? In other words, they would be all apartments for 30 days or more, leases or however.
Well, they would- I think the underlying zoning allows them to utilize the spaces. In a manner.
So to use it as a hotel, with the B1 district.
During the transition period.
Even in.
But I think what you're saying is they could still use it, the transient use.
It's an Airbnb.
Is that part of your motion? Or are you saying that once the transition happens, they have to be used as substance?
So the use question is outside of the set. So the B1, if it's permitted under B1, it's permitted. Board cancel, planning board cancel.
So I wanted to understand, what I thought I was saying is that we're segmenting the concept approval plan to include the 130.
Well, and they just bring in, but I just want to make sure the wording is right. They are looking for detailed plan approval. You're looking at granting detailed plan approval for the residential component of the project. And I think that's, clarity, that's how you want it.
So that's 132 units. So residential component of the concept plan?
So the detail.
You're granting detailed plan approval for the residential component of the originally submitted concept development.
Did you get that, Ellen?
Recommend detailed plan approval for the residential component of the project.
Okay, that was my motion. A second from anyone?
Second.
Second by one. Further discussion? Anyone have any discussion?
Or Mike, right?
I think what you said, they had to put a sidewalk in, they said they didn't have room.
They gotta figure it out.
They gotta figure it out.
Figure it out. They gotta.
And what are the streets like?
Yeah,
How do you go about it?
that's what they told me.
Most of them trees out there are either chopped up crazily or dead. And it's, gonna plant all trees there, I believe, I think you can figure it out.
Or if the board wants to make their recommendation. we can put that out on both of them.
That would be.
We have much to discuss.
Okay, Frank, we're good. Anyone else? Any other discussion?
You also spoke about the even areas that all that included, or
Yeah, just so that it's understood.
Minus the house club. I mean, just.
Right,
The
the
existing, new uses. So new uses, new commercial uses.
Right.
new residential
and
uses.
then the ADA for the fitness center and the public area,
Yeah, two days of each.
yeah. And then the parking spaces, you just spend the cost of the traffic, that's all part of the plan.
All part of it, plus the sidewalk, plus the appropriate fees, plus that they would maintain the walking path year round.
Well, maintenance of the sidewalk goes along with that as well.
That's standard.
Yes.
You're supposed to maintain the sidewalks.
Okay, so we got a motion in a second.
Motion is second. Any other discussion? Okay, I'm gonna go to vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? A full vote, 7-0.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir.
That's
I see that.
Yes.
there are two backup plans to the level of that. Those beautiful condominiums there, we just do.
We haven't seen any backup plans, so that's the point.
Okay, long road, I want to understand long road and table. Whatever cost to be table.
Next is one stop car wash. Anyone here for one stop?
I don't remember.
I am, Norm Abraham, the project engineer representing, the owner of One Stop Auto on, presently on, Grand Island Boulevard. They're proposing to, demo 2 of the automatic car wash stalls that are presently on the site and installing, renovating the building and installing a car wash in place of the existing conveyance that are below.
Sir, is that the 16 photograph?
That's the proposed. See, there's adding to the back of the building. Yeah, it's coming out about 10 feet and then it's, going back.
Yes, sir, when they come out, they're not in any violations.
No, it's that, well, correct.
Is this a man car wash or is this an automatic?
The proposal is to put in,
Oh, so that will be a man. I wasn't sure if it was like the same thing as before. Keeps it through and it's on the other side. No, but I mean like. You're so considering a drive through is what I was saying. I didn't know if it was, or somebody's there and they are pulling your car out and then you're going, or if it's automatic and nobody has to pick that up. No, I know what it is currently. I'm talking about the tunnel. That's all I was wondering. After we go in.
It has to be man, so you know where to put that. You direct where you want the fire. Those stuff out front, are those vacuums?
yes,
Out front.
yes, it's similar to all the car washes.
Those are gonna be the front guards.
Those aren't gonna be 50 foot fire.
They're not.
Again, 150,
That's the special.
the 115, they are in the 116. That's gonna be a lot of doing that.
Good thing, you can put a building up there.
No.
And so they want parking spaces.
But they're not.
Okay, so I've gone down Sharon Drive, and they got up there right on that. And then I've gone down there, to the boulevard, so it's not just like he's on the street. And he's got slams on the sidewalk with a big white lights all over. They are.
Well, I don't know, they right down the street, the other car wash that was just installed.
They're on the side of the building, but they're on the side of the building.
They're on the side. They're not gonna be right out front. Is there anything you have to do to try to maybe planting in front of them or something to try to hide them a little bit? Or-
There's a tree there.
Right, there's currently trees in the front that we provide some shade on the side.
Those vacuums don't exist currently. They're driven by the 5,000 homes. The vacuums are currently on the side of us. On this, yes. They have their. Yeah, they're on the side. But that's gonna be the drive, that's gonna be the lane drive to. car wash, so you can't have them there. Can't put them on the right-hand side because that's, you know, it's always, right?
I understand, it looks like that's the only spot you have for them, but
Right.
maybe is there, got an idea?
I mean,
Like
you
it
could put,
cost a funnel, some type of,
you could put a hedgerow.
Take a look, there are trees right there.
The third yeah, there's a couple of trees, there's a couple.
so.
Yeah, but I mean, they can put a hedgerow there and then box it around. Yeah. Page 3.
Is there,
So I mean, you could easily. Yeah, I mean, that's, they would be the sign, the existing monument sign. You could put a little, behind the existing monument sign that would show that.
is there just, are you the architect?
Yes.
Help us out here.
Could you put on the back?
I mean, how much an idea here?
But as long as you
Look
look
at
at
them,
it,
look at this picture, they're ugly.
if you, I mean, if you got rid of one of the primary functions of the business, so the people in there that actually.
I just, it's just on the front edge. Just off driving down the road, we're doing this big design and performance standards and redoing that through the long range planning committee. And we're trying to.
So looking at the design performance standards, you guys want decorative fencing, you want walls, you want screening, you want a row of blue spruce to nice and densify up. What do you got, you know?
Yeah, that's why I said, I mean, I removed those bushes on either side of the sign, blocking it, I put a nice picture across, right behind that line of the sign. Blocking those back.
What are those white things? Right there.
Those are the back ones.
Those are the bottom of the map, or is that concrete?
Yeah, those are what sound.
But it's on, is that kind of, or concrete? Can't you come up with something to?
As you said, we can do a landscape screening that would shield and some of the visibility of
How tall are those things? River roll or? Wandering planes in line.
Well, what about the idea what they did over here at, Walmart? Walgreens, like,
Somewhere.
something like that.
I mean, I don't want to get rid of all.
That's what I say, you know,
Like I said, I will see trees that are there, and like box row has going across, I keep the trees on the right hand side, a little bit further back. That's what I would do there. To make it look nice and clean, your monument sign would be up front, and you get a screening from those edges.
Are you familiar being an architect? Are you familiar with Anderson's complex on the Boulevard, the Lowe's Plaza and all that stuff in there? Well, when you first drive in, and there's what, Panera, then there's these dumpsters. And they're screened with this artificial turf of some type, and it's as tall as the dumpster. You don't even know there are dumpsters there.
No,
Is there something that? I mean, I don't want to see it build a brick wall, fence.
But I think like, so a landscape screening is probably
Right.
Well, I'm sorry. I guess our, code says that you can't park cars within 150 feet of the center. That's where I would like to- How do you, don't you park your car, don't you park your car, park your car and you get it back? when you go up to the,
It's still there, like, you don't park it along the way.
You're
Well-
standing, not parking. It's standing,
as
right?
long as you can park, you will park there as long as you're standing.
No, that would, that would have no road.
I mean, you park your car and you get out and you start backing.
So it doesn't really say that there's any requirement that they should have.
I mean, you need the vacuums for the facility.
Well, yeah, can't you put them in the back?
No, there's no road.
Well, it seems like you're parking there in the setback, you have a bunch of cars, and yeah, and you say it's not parking. You're certainly in your car.
Right, if it's up, takes you more than 4 minutes to back in, you try, you probably may take it to buckets.
I understand it, but you're still parking. And then the other thing is, it's fun, you park the car, and you might need change to put in there, you have to walk over to the change machine. Does that then become parking? What point does it become parking? I think that's the idea, is not to have cars in the right of way, so it looks nice. It doesn't seem like you're trying to get around a code.
I think it's probably.
Anyone else have any other questions?
So if you guys, I don't know if you guys are conditioning tonight or if you're saying come back with a plan. If you're conditioning tonight, I will say with timing, they came in right at the deadline. We're still in the process. We're getting out according with you under seeker. It's not gonna go to the town, town board can't act for substantial amount of time to get that out. I'm also just gonna say, right now, engineering, the condition on engineering, because we're also still in the seeker process. So I'm gonna be your recommendation is gonna end up on their agenda. If you're saying, yeah, go ahead tonight, I'm gonna be saying time out until I get back to you. So I'm just going to say condition on engineering.
How about sidewalks?
Or we gotta look at and decide what we're doing.
Are they in front of that adjacent by the? Well, exquisite.
They're in front of Dave Mazur's pleasure. They are not in front of,
Century 21, the old Century 21 old police building.
right now, we do not have a sidewalk.
Correct.
What about exquisite?
Larry does not have it. Yeah,
Burger
Plaza does not have it.
How long Burger King?
Burger King does not, but it has the bike path.
It was put in when they did the traffic, yeah.
That's, well, no, the bike path. That bike path. is there.
There's no sidewalk there in Burger King. Burger King doesn't have a sidewalk.
That was built prior to our sidewalk.
Well, yeah, Burger King's been there. Way long.
Very true.
Yeah, Larry's got the pond across his. I don't think there's any space where that exquisite X and that stuff is.
No, I mean, it's already.
No, you can't.
And we were building a brand new facility going, brand new from non-impervious to impervious, but pretty much did not increase the impervious.
Slightly.
But it was so minor that you could mathematically show the changes. Minor in nature, and we're not experiencing flooding on that site where I would be going, okay, we got an opportunity to correct the problem on that site.
But we're actually decreasing the runoff, importing the hydraulic.
Those trees that are there now, what are they? Are they sizable?
In the front, yeah, they're pretty good size, those are.
Are they?
What's your width?
Street width.
150.
150? Yeah.
So he's supposed to have a pre-loaded from traffic.
I was gonna say, if they weren't all these big trees, you get rid of those and you put three spruce along the front of it. And that would
Get a
be,
couple of these push to block everything up.
yes.
I'm here there.
Oh, yeah.
Pretty good size.
Oh, yeah.
What are they providing in?
Well,
Yes, they are.
they provide,
They're higher than those things.
they're deciduous. They're
They're not a visual screen, they're a fan.
That's what they provide.
Anyone want to make a motion or am I going to talk to? We'll talk to them. Make a motion to approve. If they have sidewalks across the way. I'm sorry, you know, I know. And that they do some type of extensive landscape screening and all of those ugly acquisitions. That would be my.
Well, so the tough thing is, if you're putting it on Casey to go, yeah, it's good. You want to see what they're doing. If you're not gonna spell it out, like, so you're gonna put, you know, 3 trees that, you know, blues, on it.
Would it hurt him to come back next meeting?
It's not gonna clear seeker on the 30-day anyway.
So, I mean, you don't even have to come back yourself. So, are you okay, sir?
No doubt we've done it.
Okay.
They can come in with an updated
So
plan.
you guys can come yourself to show us. You don't have to, I mean, I'm not trying to pressure paycheck out. By any means, but is it okay if you come back with a little drawing for us next meeting?
Okay, so I'll get your landscaping plan, and figure out whether sidewalks on that.
Yeah, landscaping and sidewalks and. I think we look like we can put it together.
Well, you're putting it on Casey to approve it. So if you don't, you're putting it on Casey to approve the landscape. And I don't think he wants to wear it out.
So I'm gonna make that motion that we. I'm gonna make a motion that we table you that we're looking to come back next meeting with the sidewalks drawn on there and some very nice landscaping plan in front of those packages.
Second.
Fair enough.
Second by Bob.
Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
See you next month.
Thank you.
Okay. Forward, goes to Alvin Road. Here. Alvin Road Storage Building.
Alvin Road.
Yep.
There you go.
Alvin Road. Thank you. Well, you want to put this one, no, they were gonna buy another property by that.
Yeah. You pay up, say, that's really good. About,
No, I mean, that wasn't bringing up the way you wanted.
Two options. Pretty much what you guys remember last time I was here, talking about it, whatever.
I need your name for our meeting. Your name, so for Jalenti.
Is this adjacent to the dog?
It's very next door. So when we move property lines, move pieces, this is the commercial piece that was reduced. That there used to be 2 long lots going, all the like pulled out. This is what they reserved for commercial as they did the solar development on the other parcels.
Is there an access road for that solar adjacent to this parcel or part of the parcel? So there's
Yeah,
gonna be
the
a
one
way in.
side of it was an access.
Okay, so way in and a gate or whatever.
So what are you thinking about school use? Because there's some stuff in the code that you can't do.
Just based around for example, UPS or I don't think they were down at the grand or the guys, 10% offices and then,
So what's the square footage of each unit?
I guess, but I know twice, it's going like 24 by 40 or 50 feet.
So basically the same as the blue buildings. And which one are you looking at as your preferred use? Which one? Well, you said a UPS store, so a UPS.
Yeah, they're something like, something like, like commercial.
Okay.
I Are you thinking, steel siding, steel?
Steel siding and maybe brick, front, glass door.
So are these, every one of these units gonna have a bathroom?
Yeah. Either that or swap them there, and you make one or two, so one middle building or glass, whatever you wanna call it, so.
So either way, they're putting this up with something.
Right.
I have a question. Is your property, north, about shelter,
If you're looking at,
and it go all the way, does it go all the way to the corner?
if you're looking at it from the street, thought, there's a lot, they're not really.
Do you go all the way to the corner, or is there another way?
I don't believe
No,
so.
there's a corner part right there.
So not on one or two lots in one here? Thank you.
There's two buildings, there's one long one. One for residents, and there's two buildings, one has one building. There's an option.
It seems like the two building one would be. Starting in the back, and then I've got a walk to the units where. Home says, in case you recommended to us, that there should be some parking in front of the units.
I mean, you got,
Exactly right. That's kind of going to fill our. Right. Give space for the parking space. And your parking lot.
No, to do
Either
that.
way. So you're gonna do it 62, for the garage door.
I can full parking space.
Also, the street is going.
Yeah. Going next to whatever.
I mean, if you're pulling over the truck with a trailer and you try to back the trailer, that's impossible.
Well,
Especially with that curved parking in front of you.
20 feet up the driveway.
if you did the double unit one, you put the garage doors on the backside.
If you might like. The whole thing was not.
So I think what everyone's thinking is that you need to reconfigure the parking area. So
I think it's two different ways of doing it.
Right, so I think we need to take into consideration Casey's notes there and also the comments here. Redesign the parking. Okay, that's all.
To do parking lot, so
Okay. And then, we would be looking for colors and elevations.
well, I mean, right now he's starting at hot. And I guess, in your notes, is the first thing, first and foremost, that use requires, you know, when you're gonna be where that use requires special use permit for that. Or you're gonna have,
Update development, we want. Where it's updated. So we kind of operate the end of the different. They would need a subsidy.
What can we do by different uses?
I mean, with all retail. It wouldn't be a subsidy. But if one of them is not. And then the one is not, it's one of retail, the one where.
I would think that's nice, that usually gonna be similar to what we have contracted tech garages. You know, a plumber with a little office in there, rather than
They're all pretty much the same.
So similar to.
and they're full. This is taking people out of their driveway, out of their house. Everyone else is gonna be, what's that?
you're right, it's right.
Right, I mean, you look at every landscape that's working out of his house.
Basically, guy in January, get their own, for their own buildings, set in stone and.
And these rent for roughly $12 a foot. So.
Anybody else have anything else to offer? David Casey's notes, it looks more like the parking used to be redone a little bit.
They want some parking in the front and also one parking. The street to the building.
From the driveway to the, back to trucking. Other than, doesn't block access in and out. The code requires you to have maintain sort of a drive lane through for people, and if it's blocked by traffic on units, which you can all.
Well, I think, even if I try to do 2 buildings, I have 60 feet. Usually it's 1 lane per car, we form the compliance or 18 long.
Parking stalls 9 by 19 wood and a 24 foot drive aisle.
But if I go 60, it should be where we, you know, look at 3 people, it's kind of comfortable with the 2 people. If it's like 1 sheet, I think it's 60 feet. So then, can I go a little wider and put it back there?
Well, it depends on the size of the truck you're talking about. You're not gonna pull an 18 wheeler.
The widest is up to possibly be about maybe 8 or 10 feet.
No, the length of it.
And then it's gonna be pretty close.
Yeah, so it'd be tough.
So we gotta make it somewhere, a U-turn somewhere, maybe go in, turn on. From the street to the back of the parking lot, you want somewhere where they turn possibly.
I think we need to work on parking more.
I was so kind of sort of okay, I will figure it out. Do you want to do it that?
Sure. Yeah, but you weren't here for approval.
Just talking.
Or that you do.
I know.
Okay, sir. Push you off.
All right, communications. 1 and 2, we've been filed. I don't know if that's complete, but there's over 4 there, we going on long range last meeting, we were wrapping up on. The family expected to bring the performance standards for revisions, so I'm assuming this would be powerful coming our way at some point. Okay, unfinished business, both the. All right, Mr. Hopkins, come on up.
Yes, good evening, Chairman Bruno and members of the planning board. Sean Hopkins, law from Hopkins, McCarthy, on behalf of the applicant, Boston Properties, also the bank, as well as the Baker Park. So to recall, we both previously submitted a plan that basically tried to incorporate the information not only from this board, but also the long range planning committee, as well as the town board. We're going to get that plan open up. Beautiful, fantastic. We also have a new plan that we're explaining. So as you recall, and it was actually Tim influenced primarily. The comprehensive plan designates this as being appropriate to include from Hamlet. So I'm not saying that we gave you exactly what we wanted, but we did incorporate 3 mixed-use buildings down here on the edge of the site. We last presented this. We had 3 multifamily buildings behind that. So we were asking for 5.07 acres of the 14.44. So we wanted to be built R3, 2.66, which is this, to accommodate 3 mixed-use buildings, which would consist of approximately 4,100 square foot commercial space and 3 upper floor apartments, hopefully targeted for local businesses. And then the remainder of the 14.44 was still shown as being downsized to R2 to accommodate additional townhomes. After you had issued a recommendation recommending support of that, the Town Ranges Comprehensive Plan Committee came back and said, well, we'd like to see you at least extend whatever you're doing along Whitehaven Road. So we did that, and we've shown that. With one important caveat. We're very reluctant to have more than 3 mixed-use buildings along Whitehaven, because we need to make sure there's demand there. Meaning, if ultimately those 3 buildings work out, and that gets built, commercial tenants generally pay more rent than residential tenants, that's great. What we don't want to have is mixed-use buildings occupying that Whitehaven Road front and having them sit there. Of course, Mr. Durang is not Fenderson, so he's not going to expect retail space to sit there for decades going to specific tenants. I mean, Fenderson's relatively unique in that to do that. But then we also have an alternative plan, which we have not seen. I want to make it very clear, we have not seen it. We thought it'd be worthwhile to come in and present it to you and get some input. So obviously, we've been watching what's going on with the hotel project. We're going to not comparing apples to apples. It's a different project. The hotel has obviously been struggling for decades, or at least for many years, to meet with the development. But in light of the fact that it seems like there might be some flexibility in terms of utilizing the CDD, whether it's an overlay or a separate zoning, for parcels that do comprise more than 10 acres, we thought is maybe let's take a look at that. So this concept, once again, that we've not submitted, what it shows is we're still showing the 3 2-story mixed-use buildings. We're showing 2 2-story 12-unit buildings oriented towards Whitehaven, meaning alongside of the front side of the nicer side of the building would face Whitehaven, and then backfilling some of that additional 14.44 acres that was previously townhomes with some additional multifamily buildings. Those should be 2-story, 8-unit buildings. Oh yeah, we actually do have a copy of it. I'm sorry. This is actually an 11 by 17 size copy of the new plan, so it's not been formally submitted. That's what it says on the presentation.
So John, just for clarity tonight, because you guys have, so we're still at the rezone request.
We are.
The areas that are the boundaries of the rezone is what is
Right.
the question of what's been the dynamic to it. The plan itself is a conceptual idea of what can outfit the space. This board's not acting tonight
No.
on consideration of what the plan specifically shows, but more the types of uses within the space.
Right, but the scenario that we're presenting each night would be a little bit different in terms of what the zone is. I do want to go back to the plan. So one of the problems we had with the previous plan that showed some rezoning to B3, we did have the opportunity to meet with the supervisor, council members, who showed this evening, was the B3 zoning actually today, and I think this is something the town is going to look at changing, does not allow mixed use. It doesn't. So we thought maybe by doing PDD does allow commercial uses. It allows a flexible mix of the 2 years, so we actually think this is a better plan. And I want to explain why we replaced some of the townhomes, which are, as you know, 2-story, 4-unit buildings with some additional multifamily. Well, we've done that for several reasons. Number one, we think what's going on in terms of the hotel, if it's worked out successfully, will be cool. I mean, I think that actually could be good for the town. I saw some of your concerns you have and some of the details when we worked out, but I think everyone agrees getting some vibrancy and life back into that building is great. Number two, we're interested in trying to accommodate the planning objective of having some mixed use there. I think mixed use is great. We, work on mixed use projects all the time. However, what happens is, in order for mixed use to succeed, you have to have density. They're inseparable, meaning you can't have low density and successful mixed use. And I think everyone would agree with that. So we think by providing some additional multifamily close to the mixed use in a very walkable environment, we think that's a good thing in terms of finding tenants for that space, which is Fred's biggest concern. Does not want to have empty first floor commercial space. Also, in light of COVID-19 and increase in construction costs and decrease in supply, there's simply an increased demand for upscale multifamily everywhere, not only Western New York, not only Grand Island, but everywhere. It's tougher and tougher, unfortunately, for young people to buy a starter home, single family home. They're just simply priced out or there's not available lot. So we think there's ample demand. We're still very interested in providing the for sale townhome unit project as well. We think by providing a mix, we can serve those different segments. We also think, obviously, Grand Island, like every municipality in West New York, has an older population than there exists nationwide. You have many people in Grand Island who have larger homes, love Grand Island, would never think of living but want to downsize, want to live someplace where they can leave during the winter, leave for vacation, live in a nice environment, live in an environment that's also walkable. We think it would be an attractive option for that. Again, by purposely limiting to two-story buildings. I think anything higher than that would be inconsistent with the scale of that area. And as you can see, obviously, we started way back when next to Timberland with single-family homes, and we scale up to townhomes, then we scale up to multifamily, and then finally we scale up to multifamily with mixed use along the way there. So what we're asking you to consider this evening is 2 steps backwards that will allow us to take 1 step forward. Basically, instead of an assortment of zoning classifications for that 14.44 acres, we would simply rezone it to PDD to discuss whether it should be an overlay or a separate zoning classification. I actually think it should be a separate zoning classification. I'm standing for it to be overlay here. File an amended application, come back in front of you, and at a future meeting, ask for you to issue a recommendation back to the town board once again. And again, we've been doing our best to incorporate input received not only from this board, town board, the long range planning committee, and also the marketplace. We're trying to struggle, but I think we've made some significant progress. And before we actually amend the application, per the comments that were made by Mr. Westfall, we want to put your input if there's anything else we should be looking at before we go forward and amend the application. That's basically it.
I just had a quick question.
Sure.
So on your, the new plan,
New plan.
you have this submitted.
Yeah.
So you're gonna have 3 mixed-use buildings,
Yeah, 3 mixed buildings.
and then adjacent to that, those would be regular 2-story apartment buildings.
Right.
My question to you is, have you considered holding off on that development on those 2 buildings to see if that 3 mixed-use commercial goes up? And if we have a use for it?
Well, I guess, we don't know exactly how the build-out would be here. My concern is that if we're not able to immediately fill the first floor of those 3 mixed-use buildings, and again, this is not going to be national things, these are going to be local businesses for this work. We may need that density to make that work, but I'm just not exactly sure what the precise order would be. I do want to make it clear, Frank, can verify, we don't tend to build all the units at once. This has been designed purposely, so hey, we bring a building into our line, it works out, we go forward, we build another one. We're certainly not interested in bringing that many units online on the speculative basis.
And on the townhome portion of it, are any of these ranch style and those stuff? Or are they all 2-story?
They're all currently 2-story. I guess we would give some thought as to 1-story. I know there would be demand for other calls. So, again, as Bob indicated, we're right now still literally at zoning and land use. All those details would have to be worked out. One of the nice things about using PDD, if we're allowed to use it at 14.44 acres, is obviously this board and town board get a lot more say in terms of the precise specifics of the layout. Because obviously you need the same rules they were talking earlier, detailed plan approval, where you're actually looking at the precise plan of the project.
So up to 14.44, 2.66 is going to be mixed use.
Yes,
And then the rest is going to be R3.
the rest would be, it would be R3 uses, but in the context of a PDD, what we propose. And partially, Mr. Bruno, the reason for that is, again, the D3 actually doesn't allow this. Currently.
I'm just
So we could do it either way, but I think the PDD is actually better.
I'm thinking back to White House Point.
Okay.
There was so much pushback that they did not want rental units.
Yeah, I guess
Or-
the difference is obviously that was multi-family units. You know, all the way over here. I think what is that difference?
Well, that was going to be the whole thing.
Yeah, that was gonna be the whole
The
thing.
whole 65 acres.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, that's a much bigger problem.
You just approved them across the street.
Well, but that was an existing building. These are-
But I do think consistent, this really does, I think, line up with that decision, because we could finally, the town of Grand Island, really make that baby as a successful hamlet. That's been on the books for a long time, and in order for that to work, you really do, we're gonna need to get some density.
I think there's-
Some kayak stands, bike racks.
I think the town board just has, hamlet study. Last meeting, hamlet study, that the town board.
And we haven't seen that.
Well, I think it just was passed the last meeting.
Yeah, I mean, if there's elements of looking, you know,
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make a motion. I'd like to make a motion that we table any discussion of any conceptual plan or any change in zoning for this. we first learned of this about 9 or 10 minutes ago. This is about the 14th iteration of a plan or a zoning change we've seen for this particular site in about the last decade. So my motion is that we simply table any further discussion to a further meeting or to a future meeting, I should say.
So it doesn't make sense if, all we're again is asking for input before we actually run the application. I think that makes a lot of sense.
I'll be honest, yeah, I like your new plan.
Okay, thank you. We're not asking, it's not a approval or formal endorsement. Want to get your.
Well, the concept of going, I mean, Sean's reaching out, about the concept of going PDD with this. The idea to have, and I guess I can call it R1 East, you've got the townhouse component, R2. You've got a mixed use, which is mixed use, it is, you know, and I'm sorry, you have apartments.
Yeah.
And then you have mixed use, so.
Mr. Chair, I made a motion. Is there a second?
Or anyone second? I'm gonna second Bob's motion. Any further discussion on Bob's motion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All opposed?
No.
No. No. Arms said no? No.
No.
No. Aaron,
Frank said no.
lost, so, go ahead, Mr.
So I mean, that's the way, again, all we would like before we actually formally amend the application, we all say, we're just, if there's any issues, but everyone on this board has spent a lot of time on this. And we thought it was worthwhile to better. We do, we welcome your input.
How much open public space is there?
So obviously, in terms of the overall site, the overall site is 65 acres, and we have the approximately 7 to 10 acres in the back. We're purposely showing this little infill green space along Whitehaven. It's important to note that some of you weren't around, and some of you were. The overall green space requirement for the entire River Oaks PUD was previously satisfied. There's actually correspondence in the file verified by the longtime contractor against this info. So we're going to provide green space. I don't think we're under the same legal obligation as would be for a typical standalone project. But we would label that on there. And again, are there any amenities that people would like to see in terms of that mixed use multifamily component?
I'm going to interrupt you for a second. Mr.
Sure.
Curtis. I'm under the understanding that this was to talk about the 14 acres, not the rest of the
It
site.
is. That's
So
right.
we're getting off track here by talking about the rest of the site. That's a whole nother discussion down the road.
Like a green space is the overall.
We were on the 14 acre
Yeah.
threshold that the long range planning
Here.
committee wanted to come down Whitehaven and down East River, the L shape,
Which we've got now.
and then take the remainder and possibly convert it to over to R2, which was originally on the table.
Right, which is the plan that we formed. Yeah.
So are you withdrawing that?
Well, no, we're asking, again, we're asking for your input, depending on the input received, we might amend our application. And again, it's based on a change in circumstance.
Again, that mixed use along the East River portion. It's potentially behind a car dealership. But there's gonna be a lot of that corner, so what's the sense of having that? That makes no sense.
Meaning, we don't, and we agree, it doesn't make sense to put mixed use.
Right.
You'll never.
Councilman Marston, go ahead.
So we did have some discussions with them a while back there, and we were very concerned about that corner piece of property becoming unusable.
The 3.89
And
acres.
what they brought forward basically enables that property, because we didn't feel that putting curb cuts to East River of that property was very viable, because it's a dangerous corner. This would make that property more usable from the rear side.
And I would also say that this idea should go to long range plan before us. It should go to them.
Simultaneously.
Yeah, I think so.
Well, I'd like to have their decision.
Well, but what, I mean, fundamentally, wasn't there the question, I think there was a discussion of mixed use being in a development plan. And I think that's been openly discussed.
Yeah.
However, the zonings that we have and the moving of the property lines, the current zonings on the property do not allow a mixed use. So they need to discuss with you guys the idea, if you want mixed use down there, what is our step to do it? Do they request a specific zoning that allows mixed use, or do they go PDD, develop a comprehensive plan? They're asking for direction on where to go that way, because currently, we said we want mixed use there, but we can't put mixed use there no matter what we do. So we need to solve that problem first with a conceptual idea.
And I think the PDD solved it. Again, PDD for only the 14.4 acres, I want to make it clear, the remainder is gonna stay R2.
We
We're not
don't
touching
do
that.
that, the whole thing is the PDD.
No,
Why
no,
not?
because we go PDD for the whole thing, then I think the neighbors on Timberland will not. That's my opinion. I think they're gonna, they fought hard for the R2, they fought hard for the R2 requirements.
So did,
Let's leave what's on the R2 requirements.
so did East River Road.
Right, and East River Road, yeah.
But you don't have the minimum acreage right now for PDD then.
Well, I guess what we're asking is, it looks like they're on the hotel project, obviously, they're less than 25 acres. I'm not sure the specifics, we looked at all.
Are you building a boardwalk on, I mean, I know you said that isn't much, but are you building a boardwalk on the river? Are you, again, to get into the incentive zoning component, what does the town get as a benefit?
I think we're open to that.
To,
There won't be a boardwalk.
I would also think that a PDD zoning would reopen any requirement we wanted for open space, regardless of. As
fair.
as or
Yeah, that's, and it is no court.
I'm sorry, you brought up.
No, so let me explain. So this
I
question,
know, but you brought that up.
no, not court decision. What I brought up is that question's been raised before in connection with Whitehaven Farms across the street. And after doing a comprehensive analysis, where I really looked at every town of Great Island file at Mr. Spitzer's office, there's a letter in the town record where he says the green space requirement for the overall river roads. TV is that. No, and I'm also not saying, well, hey, because that we're not open to providing some green space. We're not saying that. We're trying.
I have a question.
Sure.
You made a deal, I guess, with the owner of the corner lot.
No. There's no deal. What we're doing is, you know, we've reached out to them and I forget who the architect is. He's been here, so, no response. What we're showing now, and this is only for that site, you can see we're putting the driveway right along their property line, they can connect it into it, and therefore ensuring they don't need to have a curb cut on that. Okay, this is a nice thing.
Minimize Whitehaven at the corner.
We'll grant them an easement. If and when they develop that, Frank reached out, he'd be interested in possibly acquiring it, but there's just no response. Obviously, they have a much bigger project.
Just for clarity, is that road gonna be a public road?
No, I think you probably want, I don't think the town probably wants it as a public road. We'd be open to that, but I doubt Mr. Crawford would want to see that as a public road.
Well, you're gonna run into some development constraints when you're talking the
Right away.
70-foot right, and you're gonna lose potential land development.
Yeah, I think we make it a private road, we agree that we'll grant an easement to whoever develops that part. I think that's the best way.
Sidewalks and the whole thing.
The sidewalk on Whitehaven. Entire stretch.
Yeah, your property goes to Pleasant Street.
No.
R2 has historically been no sidewalk. I tried once and it was less than desirable outcome.
That road.
Anyone else have any other comments for this new idea?
Idea 44.
Be nice to see some trails through there.
I agree. We were discussing that today. We're going to look at that. We're open to that.
You're talking about trail through the whole thing, Norm, or just 14 acres, because that's all that's on the table right now is 14 acres.
Do the whole thing.
Let's look at it.
Yeah, we got some.
Well, but if we are gonna put out the whole thing, design it on a 14.44 acre solar company.
So, I mean, the thing is, you've got a development scheme idea. So why not codify through the PDD?
Well, that's what we would do.
But you're not, you're only going a small piece, the entire acre.
I mean,
Matter, the development.
My only concern about rezoning the whole site to CDD is again, the residents on Timberlake, I don't want them to think we're doing it to get something we're otherwise not. That's not what it's.
Okay, I think we gave you all that we can give you tonight. I mean, obviously you could have some other conversations about how us going engineering, possibly do some tooling.
All right, we're gonna plan on proceeding, we'll file an amended application, we'll put the specifics that are required by the CDD.
Okay.
Thank you, everyone, have a good Thanksgiving.
Great, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Second. Frank, any discussion?
Some of you, question for Peter. The zoning minutes that were handed out today. 6 of the 7 items are on garages. The new law is not working.
From what I understand, it was working too good.
Meaning what?
They didn't pass anything in 1 month. They thought it would be how.
I talked to, no, I
talked to-
I talked to someone, I know, yeah, they said that the law is helping now.
Yeah, they thought it was really good.
It really helped.
They said it gave more bargaining
They
power.
could really turn stuff down.
Yeah. They told me they, so far, it's good.
So whenever he's going back to a variance.
Well.
Dave,
yeah.
Dave, I have a question of Bob. Dave?
Go ahead.
Okay, it looks like our next meeting, we're gonna take a look at the Long Road project, and I'm understanding, Bob, that we have a package to pick up from you. But doesn't it seem premature that we look at this before the seeker process is finished? And all the consultants have done their work so that we can take advantage of that?
Dave, I asked the town attorney the same exact question. He said the timing is, he feels there was no problem with the request to put it in front of the planning board at this stand. I asked the same question because, but
Well, I'll just make the comment that, if and when it comes before the planning board for commentary, my commentary would be, I think, in line with what Dave suggested. It would be premature for us to comment before we've seen all the, outcomes of these particular studies.
Is it, would it be within our purview to table it until we have those?
We could sure make a motion that would have to carry.
I just hate to get all the Long Road people here next month and then table because we want to move on for lack of information, basically.
Well, since it's part of tonight's agenda, could we revert back to, what was it, item number 2 on the agenda?
Well, that's been
Reopen that and, in line with what Dave suggested.
No, that's been posted this night's agenda.
It's something that was already. Some people in some area was. Something else there.
Fair for who?
Who said it was in there?
I mean, if there's up here. If we wanna put it back and just say, we're gonna
We could
table it until we get the results of the secret studies. The town studies.
Well, unfortunately, the applicant's not here, so we normally don't do that unless the applicant's here. You don't have an applicant. We should hear what, who's no longer here, who said that? Mr. Huntress, I think we should be able to have some input before we vote on something. Most of the board. I think we tabled it, we need to, Mr. Spitzer says he's the town attorney, he says if it comes to this board prior to seeker, then we can deal with it when it comes our way.
I'm sure that we are going to end up asking a lot of questions that will probably be answered in the seeker process. And that the Long Road people next week aren't going to have answers for us. So seems to me like we're just kind of spinning our wheels.
Yeah, I agree with Dave. I think we should, I'm gonna make a motion.
We already got a motion to adjourn on.
And did we second it? Or
You're holding a motion to adjourn?
I'll put my motion to adjourn.
Okay, fine, go ahead.
I like what Dave's saying. I don't think it should come, we should table it until all the information. is there. And we don't need to have the applicant here to tell them. We can write them a letter. and say-
That's your
We can
motion,
write them a
Frank.
letter, yeah, we can write them a letter.
Second to Frank's motion.
Hold on, okay, I just have a question.
Motion discussion. Second from anyone? Frank's motion?
I'll second that.
Okay, any further discussion? Brad?
So you want to table something that was pulled from tonight's agenda?
So the poll, they asked. me
No.
to.
Okay, so they asked the table, so their intention is to come back next month. Do you want to table it before it's on the next month's agenda?
I don't know, is there a harm in making a statement that this board is going to reserve any decision until viewing the result of the study?
Well, that's Frank's motion, second by Norm. Any other discussion?
Yeah, just in terms of procedural things, this came from engineering. The referral came to us this month from engineering.
Yeah.
So as a practical matter, whether they show up again in December or not, perhaps you could suggest to them that they're coming to us in December before we see the results of the consultant seeker inputs would be fruitless. Do you have any idea when that's going to be completed?
They just hired them last town board meeting, right, was last meeting? Yeah, it was literally last town board meeting. They executed the contracts on Tuesday after the meeting. Yeah, those parties were notified, so now they are involved, scheduling teams doing whatever, whoever has what assignments and availability to do the tasks that were in their proposals.
So
I couldn't comment how long it's gonna take them. I mean, obviously, the town wants answers. But
All right, there's been a motion and a second. Any other discussion? Let's vote. All in favor of Frank's motion?
Aye.
1, 2, 3,
Aye.
and 4. All against? You were an aye?
I'm not,
No.
I'm an,
You're not, so 5 ayes? No. No, no. Okay, passed. I still think Mr. Humphrey should have some say, some input, but the guy voted, so there's no way. I'm just downstairs. All right, motion to adjourn is in.
Motion to adjourn.
Wait,
Go ahead.
I just have a quick question. So we just had the motion to adjourn something that isn't on the agenda, so.
it is on these.
Okay, but so if they decide they want to come back next month, their table, they can't come back.
They can come back for a discussion.
Okay, so I mean, but they're not allowed to go on the agenda other than just.
We would be voting last month before we get these study results that.
Okay.
I personally don't think
It makes no sense.
I personally don't think I have the expertise to write those studies.
I don't even know if we can. Yeah. We just had to look at- No, there's not a lot more.
Well, one way or another, the ball is in the applicant's court. They have to come back to town engineering. Town engineering would have to refer it back to us. So procedurally, that's what's going to happen.
That was,
We have a motion to adjourn, second anyone?
I would just.
Second by.
I can't.
No, Brad, you can't second. Second by, I'll second. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
So Pete, you're saying that accessory law is working too good, so